Welcome, everyone, to the Aging and Spirituality podcast, where we're focusing on your inner potential and you realizing it at your stage of life right now so you can do great things, so you can find out who you truly are, and so you can do the things that you came to Earth to do. So I'm Kathy Lee Taylor.
And I'm Chris Jensen.
We are your hosts for today, and I'm going to be talking about a subject that you might find it intriguing, and some of you might find it a little bit scary. I called it Awakening Your Inner Potential and Healing from Soul Loss. And this is kind of a concept that is new to me, but I've really been digging into it and discovering what it means in my life. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, and I'm hoping along the way it might resonate with some of you and maybe even help some of you heal stuff that is going on in your life. So here's a question for you to kind of target in on this particular subject. Do you feel like there may be a piece of you that is missing? That's an odd question. I know it is. But maybe you experienced some childhood trauma that you haven't yet resolved. It's still there. One of the signs that you have this going on is that you have big gaps in your memory. Typically after the age of 5, but you can't remember what happened to you as a child. I know for sure that that is true for me, because people would ask me about my childhood all the time and I couldn't tell them. I wouldn't remember. I wouldn't be able to remember. So if you can relate to those ideas, just stay tuned here. We're going to go over what it means to experience a soul loss, how you can get that piece of you back, and how that affects your healing process. So again, do you know anybody that hasn't experienced trauma in their childhood? I was going to ask, do you know anybody who has, but who hasn't? I mean, everybody comes in to their school with some lessons that they need to learn. Some form of trauma is a very typical experience in childhood, and it can be in all kinds of different forms. Like trauma can be as deep as sexual and emotional and mental. You could have an abusive parent, sibling, or someone that's close to your family that's been abusive to you. It might be something as quote unquote simple as a friend who devastates you with betrayal. But it could be a crisis, like a sudden loss of somebody, death, or loss of a loved one. So these are events that happen to all of us. Every one of us can tell you a story of what has happened to them in childhood, and they stop you dead in your tracks because they make a very impactful pain is painfully impactful on you. You don't forget. There's a part of you that is very aware of it all the time. So here's the thing about soul loss. When humans are experiencing this kind of trauma, a part of our vital essence, which is another word for saying soul, separates so that we can survive the experience by escaping the full impact of the pain. So think of it this way. Your soul kind of takes the memory away, blocks the memory in a way that you're not overwhelmed by the experience, because for young people it can be very, very overwhelming, and this is why you cannot remember some things that happened to you as a child. So okay, one of the ways you can also recognize if you're having this experience is that when you have this soul loss or this soul block, one of the consequences is that you're living with a perpetual feeling of feeling incomplete or disconnected on some level. So if you have that going on, that's a really good place to start to investigate.
Maybe it's even like you don't have access to some part of you.
Exactly. Yeah, that too. Yeah, it feels like you'd like to know what's going on in there, but you're so, I mean, we were talking about this before we came online. I have stuff that I feel like I can't get access to. I have questions that I feel like I can't get the answers to. It's the same kind of thing. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about this experience of soul loss in my life. But let me just say, I'm going to give you some of the symptoms of soul loss. If you have a pen and paper, this is what to write down. So if when you get off this call, you can think about it and see if any of these apply to your current experience. So, do you feel fully alive and connected in your body? If there are places where you do not feel connected, those are places to explore. Is it easy for you to remain present in your body? Because your body is always feeding back to you what is going on. Your mind and emotions, soul, and that includes the remembrances of things that happened when you were younger. Do you have memory gaps after the age of 5 where you blocked out significant parts of your life? Are you completely engaged in your life with a sense of purpose? Or are you always struggling to figure out what is it that I'm meant to do? Can you find places in your life where you feel completely stuck? These are the places that when I'm coaching people, that's typically when they're looking for help. They feel completely stuck, like their car is in deep mud and the wheels are spinning and they can't get anywhere and they can't figure out why they can't get anywhere. This is a real experience that comes from this kind of soul disconnection. A lot of times people that are having chronic depression and suicidal tendencies and PTSD, grief is something that is also an expression of this kind of disconnection. So if you're feeling like you really lack control over your life and you're having difficulty overcoming challenges, including things like addiction, again, this is another symptom of a soul loss early in life that hopefully when we get to the end of this talk, you'll think it's important enough to take a look and see if this is what's going on for you so you can heal it. Because once you let it go, a lot of energy is freed up. And a lot of opportunities come that would never have been there before. So let's see. I was going to talk about how you lose your energy. It's part of what I just said about when you free this up, you will get energy back that you didn't know you were missing before. So, from a psychological perspective, therapists talk about soul loss being similar to the idea of disassociation. And that's a coping mechanism where the mind disconnects from overwhelming emotions and experiences. So it's a natural defense mechanism that psychologists have identified that helps us survive trauma. But I've been talking about it from a shamanic point of view because they, in that ancient tradition, they see this soul loss similarly. But in its wisdom, your soul is detaching from this painful experience, protecting you from the pain. So while this fragmentation serves a purpose in the short term, leaving these parts unhealed can lead to longer term issues, a bunch of which we just discussed now. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story now about experiencing soul loss. Just to upfront say that the soul is always moving towards wholeness. The soul is always trying to move you back towards your center, towards the source of everything, right? So if something's going on that is blocking you from that, you're going to feel it in a number of different ways that we've already alluded to. I recently attended an energy clearing workshop. It was actually online, and I discovered a blockage in my second chakra that I'd been completely unaware of. I became aware of a buried memory about something that had happened to me when I was 16 years old, and it was shocking and was painful, to say the least. So much so that I wanted to keep it buried when I became aware of it. But some part of me knew it's time. I need to bring this awareness forward, and I need to heal this. I need to let this go. Chris knows because we talked about this one because it was pretty deep for me. So I actually also spoke with someone who's a shamanic practitioner and asked her to take me on a journey. And a journey is like a guided meditation in the shamanic practice. They use drums, they use different ways to get you there, but it's the same kind of process. I needed her as a third party to be able to see what was going on with me so I could get in and figure out what was happening with this process inside of me. So in that journey, I actually ended up doing what she said was a soul retrieval that happened naturally. Sometimes a shamanic practitioner will go and do the soul retrieval for you because they can see it and they can access it and they can bring it back for you. In my case, I did it naturally on my own, which was very interesting because then I was left with the aftermath of what that meant, reintegrating that part memory and that energy back into my body. So it was, bringing that part back in, that buried part, that energetic part of me that was hiding, kind of settled back into my body. And I was really flooded with a feeling of being whole again, which felt odd, right? Because it wasn't familiar. It wasn't familiar. It shouldn't feel odd. It's your natural state, but it wasn't familiar to me at the time. So it kind of took me off guard. So it's taken me a while to kind of integrate the pieces of that healing. And I'm probably still in the process of doing it. But while I was going through this journey, I remember hearing certain words that had a significant impact on me. And those words were, I deserve to be loved.
Mm.
And I remember because the energy that had been blocked was in the sacral, second chakra. And I remember thinking, okay, well, that makes sense. There's some part of me that feels like I'm unlovable or unloved because I didn't experience that as a child. I didn't have that being fed back to me a lot from my parents. So as a result of that particular not feeling loved, I basically buried a part of myself and became like a lone wolf in this lifetime. That paradox of the person that is actually a lone wolf is kind of a misnomer because, anybody on the spiritual path knows you're one with everything, right? You're not really a lone wolf. You're part of everything anyways. But that feeling of being disconnected from people was there for me. And it isn't necessarily healthy. So that is one of the things that I am working on, opening up and being able to connect with people and be grateful for those connections. So that's the thing that is healing inside of me from this particular experience. And maybe, I'll talk about this again in the future as this continues to unfold for me. So for now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of soul retrieval, having experienced what I have so far, but also reading a lot of other people's experiences about this particular process. Again, for me, it was thinking about why I don't connect to people because it's too damn dangerous. There's too much pain involved in that when I was a child. So I just blocked people out and became very, work oriented, took care of my kid, focused on my yoga practices, all of those things. But
Kept you from looking at it.
What?
Kept you from looking at that stuff. Yeah.
Kept me from thinking it was important.
Yeah.
To, make friends, build connections, network, all of those things that you would normally do even when you're building a business, but somehow I was able to work around all of those things. So here are some of the benefits of doing a soul retrieval, of taking that energy back. You'll know you're healing when you're feeling these kinds of things, feeling grounded and centered more, having increased energy and vitality, having a greater sense of agency over your life, having improved clarity and decision-making, having a surge of joy and lightness, an enhanced physical well-being, sleep better, reduce addictive tendencies. A lot of addiction comes from the pain that is trapped in the body. And then a profound sense of wholeness and belonging. So those are the things that you can look for as you're on this healing journey. You'll know you're starting to succeed. So, and that's what I'm doing right now, is looking at those connections with people and opening the door to it being a positive experience for me, finding the positive in it, being grateful for it no matter what happens, just allowing myself to be able to do that. So again, the soul is always yearning to incorporate the highest qualities into your life. All of God's essence. He wants to express through you as much as it's possible, you know? So hopefully this gives you an idea of what you need to do to feel that void and to heal it so you can get back to being more whole on a daily basis. So don't worry if you aren't up for a shamanic journey. There
Yeah.
are other ways to reconnect with your soul. It's just something that came into my life and I wanted to experience. And so, but there are a lot of ways to deal with this kind of disconnection. And of course, meditation is our first recommendation every time. Your soul will
Well,
lead.
I really appreciate you sharing your story
Yeah.
because it's very helpful because everybody has something like
Uh,
that.
I hope that's true. And it's vulnerable to tell the story, and I don't, I haven't even told all the details about it. And that's for a reason, because I want to see what's going to happen in the next little while with it. But so maybe there'll be another encore and we'll talk about the soul healing again. But
Yeah.
okay, so meditation is that is one of the things that meditation will do, no matter what point of your life, soul loss, whatever it is that you're dealing with. Spirit will guide you to the answers that will help you heal. There's no doubt about it. Nature is also a great healer, getting out into nature, hugging a tree, being still, getting your feet planted into earth. Someone who feels like they have a soul piece missing, you just go and walk or lie down on the ground, and reflect on the root cause of this loss. You can find it on your own. So you can also try things like journaling, automatic writing. This is really sitting still and deeply listening to your inner self and asking the question, what is the root cause of my soul loss? A lot of people can get answers and responses from their soul that way. So, okay. Anyway, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain when it comes to taking back those parts of your soul that may have been eclipsed by traumas in childhood. That will allow you to open up to your highest potential, which is again,
Opens doors, you know. You talk about
yes,
potential, it opens the whole world.
that's for sure. That's for sure. It does. So, um, yeah, we said it, it opens that inner potential. It opens up the things that we talk about all the time, living the best quality life that we possibly can. So, no matter what happened to you as a child, no matter what trauma you think is going on in there, your soul will help you heal it. It can do that. Hope it was helpful. Maybe we'll talk about it again in the future. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for coming. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.